Story 1. I was right in the thick of an emergency C-section, when suddenly everything took a turn for the surreal. My heart rate dropped, and I could hear my mom's voice in the distance. The room started to glow, filling with a brightness that was almost too much, but it felt incredibly peaceful, like being wrapped in pure love. It was like standing in a room flooded with light, and although I couldn't see anyone clearly, I knew I wasn't alone. Shadows moved around me, and then one of them, closer than the others, called out my name. It was my grandmother, or at least someone who claimed to be, even though all my grandmothers were still very much alive. She told me, "Time is different here." After I expressed my confusion about her being there, she explained that I had something important to do back in the real world, and staying wasn't an option. At first I was holding my baby, but then as we spoke I realized I wasn't holding her anymore. Oddly, I wasn't worried. The room began to darken as we talked about what I needed to do, and then I woke up. What was supposed to be a quick procedure had taken over 4 hours, during which my heart had stopped for a while. My daughter also had a moment without a heartbeat, but they revived her before me, explaining why I felt her presence, and then didn't. This wasn't my first rodeo with something beyond the ordinary. When I was about 7 or 8, our car went off the road and I had a similar out-of-body experience. I watched everything from above, telling my mom details afterward that I couldn't have known from my position in the car. I even described the scene of the accident, including a green car behind the ambulance and the fate of the kittens we had with us. Waking up in the hospital, I asked about the red and black ceiling I remembered, only to learn it was actually the floor's pattern. The last thing I remembered before waking up was being in a room filled with white light and shadows, where an older woman, radiating love and warmth, told me it wasn't my time yet. Years later, a severe illness had me bedridden with a high fever. During this time, I had another vivid experience, this time with voices that could have been Jesus and Mary according to them, but they suggested they were much older. They spoke in shapes and colors, telling me I had an important purpose but couldn't stay with them yet. They described everyone having a purpose, like a ripple effect from a rock thrown into a pond, leading to a chain of events that benefits the world in ways we might not immediately see. Waking up from that, I found myself still searching for that purpose. But maybe, just maybe, starting that small sunflower maze was a step in the right direction. It's grown into something bigger than I ever imagined, inspiring others and spreading a bit more love and beauty in the world. Perhaps that's been my purpose all along, to create ripples of kindness and joy, one sunflower at a time. This story was shared by Jen W. and happened in 1997. Story 2. I was hanging out upstairs when my brother decided it would be a good idea to push me from the second story of our house. Our staircase, which took a sharp 90-degree turn, became my unexpected slide. I ended up tumbling down and landing in a way that no one ever wants to. My neck bent under me with the rest of my body awkwardly piled on top. The crash must have been loud because my mom came running. When she picked me up, I realized something terrifying. I couldn't breathe. No matter how hard I tried, air just wouldn't fill my lungs. But instead of panicking, I felt this strange sense of calm, almost like I was being pulled by some unseen force. I started turning blue, and that's when my mom really freaked out. She scooped me up and dashed for the car, leaving my brother, who was only 7 at the time, by himself at home. By the time she was stepping out the door, I was gone. But the weirdest part? I could still see everything happening around me. I watched as she laid my lifeless body on the back seat and then hurried to the driver's side. We were off to the military hospital not too far from where we lived. Yeah, I'm an army brat. Following her into the hospital felt surreal. I watched as she ran in, screaming for help, calling out my name, telling the staff I had fallen. The emergency room had this tall, elderly doctor with short white hair. He was wearing civilian clothes, which I found odd. The room was painted in that typical army green color, but lighter, more pastel. My mom laid me down on the bed and then left to call my dad. When he got there, she rushed back to check on my brother. Meanwhile, I was fascinated by everything in the room. The big light overhead that looked like something out of a sci-fi movie, the chair in the corner with a duffel bag underneath, and a white metal cabinet filled with meds. My dad, knowing my history with tachycardia, urged the doctor to use the defibrillator. Curiosity got the better of me, and I floated closer, about 3 feet above my body, just as the doctor shocked my heart. That's when this tunnel appeared, pulling me in with a sense of urgency I couldn't resist. Breathing didn't matter anymore. The tunnel led to a light that somehow turned into darkness, but it was a comforting, familiar kind of darkness. Going through that tunnel felt oddly normal, and I started to enjoy the sensation of floating, of being fed knowledge by the universe itself. It was like getting the insights I needed for my life. Suddenly, I wasn't in Ontario anymore. I found myself in a place that felt loving, warm, and incredibly familiar. I knew I was home. Years later, at 33, I found myself in the emergency room again for a different reason, but with a similar outcome. My heart rate spiked to 244 BPM right before it stopped. Once again, I slipped out of my body, but this time I didn't hover. I immediately became part of something much larger, a thought form, for lack of a better term. This story was shared by Gabby D and happened in 1973 and 2003. Story 3. I suddenly got a really bad headache and my vision went all blurry. It was like everything went black and I passed out. When I woke up, I could see my body lying on the floor. But here's the weird part. I was standing right next to it. It felt like I was in two places at once. I was so tired and I could see my friends and teachers gathered around me. They were trying to help me breathe. Then, a little while later, I saw the paramedics rushing down the stairs. I don't remember everything clearly, but I think they started doing CPR right away. I could see my girlfriend crying and wanting to know what was happening. One of the teachers was holding her to comfort her. I tried to go closer to her, but I couldn't move, so I just stared at her for a few moments. When I looked back at my body, the paramedics were still doing CPR. I could feel their hand pressing on my chest. I really wanted to wake up, but I was just too tired to do anything. I wanted to cry, but I was too exhausted and weak. I started thinking about my family and all the things I would miss if I couldn't go back to my body. It made me really sad and angry because I didn't get a chance to say goodbye. It felt just like when I couldn't say goodbye to my grandparents. I felt a weird touch on my hand, like someone was there. When I looked down, I saw a little boy who was only 1 or 2 years old. It was strange because he could actually see me. I wondered if he was my child or something. But as soon as he touched my hand, I felt this burst of energy. Suddenly, I wasn't tired anymore and I could move around. I ran over to my girlfriend and tried talking to her and touching her, but she couldn't see, hear, or feel me. It made me really sad and I started crying a lot. But then the little boy came back and held my hand, pointing at my unconscious body. I saw the paramedics getting ready to use the defibrillator paddles on me and I got really scared. But when I looked at the child, he smiled at me. It was like he gave me enough energy to go back to my body. I heard someone say, "Hurry, she's going." So I started running and jumped into my left thigh. And then I woke up, breathing super hard. I felt tired again, like I had been running for hours. When I looked around, everyone was shocked and amazed, like they had seen something incredible. I can't remember what happened next, but I woke up in the hospital. When I asked the doctor why everyone was so surprised, they told me that the paramedics never used the defibrillator paddles. I woke up all by myself. This story was shared by Farcyrus G and happened in 2018.